All right, episode 89 with Darryl Stingley, one of the biggest beasts in the game in terms of his movement and his mindset and what he embodies as somebody who takes a lot of inspiration from the heroes in the Marvel and other comics and different stories and legends and movies and things. You see it in his movement and you see it in this conversation, how he really takes that heroic mindset and puts it into action. And we talk a lot about how that can be done and how he's doing it. And of course, how it applies to the ongoing problems that, you know, have been highlighted recently through the Black Lives Matter movement, and he's, of course, you know, the face and the man behind the Squadron Projects, Jim. And so you'll be able to find all those links in the description to dive deeper if you haven't yet. And we appreciate Darryl giving us his time. And he's one of the busiest, hardest working guys in the game right now. So really appreciate this conversation. Had an amazing time. Thank you guys for listening. Here we go.
I wanted to make something that made people ask questions. Why are we called knights? Why are we called Ronins? Why are we called, you know, like masters or whatever? You know, it's like, why is that what our level is called? And when you explain to them like what the flow of everything means, you know what I mean? Like from initiate level being the first level when they get there to master, like what does that mean? So it was just something to kind of get them to engage more with that. And then I figured, you know, obviously the more questions they have, the more answers we give, the more meaning they get out of what they're doing, the more they're going to understand like what it means to be a part of a community. And it's no longer just an extracurricular activity or like some fucking like bounce house type of shit. It's like a real thing, you know. It's a real like art form or sport or martial art or whatever they want to see it as in their life. And that's what I was trying to make in the space. Like we had the program, we had the first thing you see when you walk in the door is the storefront with all of the clothing. We have strikes on the wall. We have a TV. Actually, my personal TV I took to the gym and put on the outside of my office wall, which is like right when you walk in, you just see videos like of parkour athletes, including us, obviously, but like everybody, all of our homies that have come through the gym, people that we admire, just to like really make the culture like in the space. Because what I wanted to do and what I was working so hard at doing was like creating moments in the space for the people there, for the people in the community, and for the people like in the surrounding parkour community to like see and like want to like, shit, I gotta go, you know. Like Oliver Kazier came out after he saw Swing Theory, because he's like, I gotta go and look at those fucking swings.
Yeah, if you're a bar kind of star, then you have to go. Yeah, I mean, some of those things, that was an amazing video, and I dropped the ball. I wanted to do a whole podcast just on that video, but I'm ashamed to say that I never have gotten around to it. But it's not off the table. It's just like, it's just not been in my cards. But okay, I think I'll probably cut you in at some point just talking about that, because I think that's amazing. I think that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about anyways, is just like, you seem to be really putting, you know, a lot of attention into growing and evolving the sport in a way that's really, really helping it mature in a way that, like you said, builds community, but in a way that builds community in a way that's even more sustainable, has more foundation to grow higher. And, you know, I can't say how much I appreciate that, because I don't have the tools always, but I want to see it go in that direction too, where it's not just, what did you call it? Some bounce castle shit or whatever. Like,
yeah.
And so do you want to talk any more about how you designed that program? Because, you know, anyone who's visited Squadron Projects is just, they have nothing but just, you know, they scream from the rooftops how amazing it is and how well put together everything is. And so if you are interested in sharing any of that, you know, I'm interested in just how you've structured it and why you call, like, I don't know the system and what the meaning is, but I would be very curious to know how you put that together and what meaning and like, where's it all aiming at and pointing towards?
Right. Um, well, I mean, you can see on my wall like what I got over there.
Yeah.
So, like that's obviously a huge like driving force for me, comic books and like just pop culture stuff in general. It doesn't like it, for the most part, obviously, for me personally, it is comic books,
Mm.
um but you know, I don't want to leave things off the table for people, and people get inspired by a lot of shit, and I think it's really healthy to implement that inspiration into something physical like parkour, because excuse me, it's kind of like why why do I personally move the way that I move now? I've seen the whole parkour community obviously for 15 years, you know, and seen the evolution and stuff like that, and there's a reason why I don't really like, I am a huge fan of parkour, but like I don't do a lot of I don't want to say like trend hopping, but like, you know, when good a case in point is like Nate did a side pre to rail, and then dude, it just blew up, like obviously, and
Mm.
now everybody's like doing them. It's like a thing that people are doing, and like obviously I spent some time like the closest thing I had done to side pre to rail like that was like side preing train tracks.
Mm.
Like, but after he did that, I was like, okay, cool. There's a whole new realm to this. So I spent time doing that, but I never showed it to anybody. You know what I mean? It
Mm-hmm.
was just more like I want to do this thing, you know, because it looks like it's fun and it's like a cool challenge. But it wasn't something that reshaped my style. You know what I mean? Like I feel like a lot of people, and this isn't even a bad thing. This is a great thing because it pushes the sport forward. But like a lot of people will, something will happen, you know, and then people will kind of hop on that kind of movement.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not that kind of athlete,
Mm.
because my movement inspirations come from things like this. So you know, like that's why I move the way I move. That's how I do it, and that's essentially like what I was trying to um, create, because people watch a whole bunch of stuff and they're like, you know, if you watched any of the Blade movies,
Yeah.
like then you know Blade did some sick shit. And I've never seen one person in parkour try to like replicate anything
Mm.
like that. And now we have this whole world of like Marvel movies and like kids are getting into stuff like that, and it's just opening the doors for what they can see, and it's changing, like, you know, they see how those characters
Mm.
move, what they do, but they don't try to imitate it anymore, it looks like, you know what I mean? So I was trying to bring that into the space and hopefully make that something that, like, when those kids get older and they start doing what we're doing, you know, traveling around, going to different communities and stuff like that they take that with them. Or if anybody comes through and they see it, they're gonna see it and they're gonna like experience, oh shit, you know what I mean?
Mm.
This place is like, these guys are like Jedis, you know what I mean? Like, so that's what that was like the purpose of it. I really wanted to make something that was appealing to kids, obviously, but in a way that was meaningful. Like I hated that the kids wanted to get the next band just to get the next band. You know what I mean? Um, and like it's like, okay, cool, once I'm out of level 2, I'm in level 3, and then I'm not doing level 2 stuff anymore. And it's like, no, you guys need to understand the importance of each level and why the movements in that level, the way that you have to move in that level is so important to you getting to this level. So I thought, like, reshape the system, it will shock them, which it did.
Mm.
And when they start seeing the new things, and we start, basically we demanded more of them. That was one of the biggest things I wanted to do, because I thought everything was way too easy before. um, and it wasn't the first time I'd reshaped the program. It was just like the first time I did like a full like
Just
makeover.
wipe.
Everything's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
um, so like when we did that legitimately, and we only we only had it going, I think, for maybe a month or a month and a half, like with everything reshaped. And people were like, what's this? What is that? Is it a new test? Is there more? You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, what do I get now? Like, and we show them the new, like, basically the first two bands are still silicone bands. After that, they're the paracords, and I handmade all of them myself.
Oh,
Like, and
wow.
they're all different styles, and I thought that was special. I was like, like you get it made by
Your
your
master.
grandmaster.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Kind of like Sokka and Piandao, like making the sword together and stuff like that.
Oh, man.
Um, so yeah, I was like, this is special. This, if you tell them stuff like this, like it's gonna mean more. And it seemed like it really was. Like kids were, how do I how do I get to that level? And they were really starting to respect what they were doing, and that was already happening because of what we had been doing for the past year with like the programming, and like obviously bringing in more professional coaches like Mel and like Armando,
Mm.
and like making the program like a more professional program. Like they were already kind of getting that, but when we changed like the cosmetics of it, people were like, okay, now it's serious. It's not just an intangible thing that only I can feel. It's now something that like I can see, I can embody this, I can be an apprentice, I can be a knight, I can be, you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
these are like the things that people are like, that the kids were like looking forward to more. And like I said, we only had it for about a month and a half before we had to obviously like close the gym because of COVID and stuff. But it was working, and I think like it was getting to that point where the kids were starting to really pay more attention to the more important aspects of
Mm.
what parkour is useful for, I think, and why the community aspect of it is so important. Like it was really becoming like something like a little subculture itself. Um, so that was the point of the reshaping of the program, and like reshaping what it looks like and what it sounds like and what it feels like and stuff like that.
That's so amazing, man. That all sounds so good. Like, I love so much about that because that's how I think about how I learned parkour and how I've like apprenticed under certain masters and picked up techniques. And I've made many comparisons on the podcast to Jedi's and other things because
Mm.
I really, and it's really evident in your movement. I don't know if you talked with Knox about it, but Knox even used to tell me like, dude, Darryl moves like a superhero. He's just like a Marvel superhero, just like that. And it's like, it's really powerful. I think what you're doing, humans, I'm studying a lot of story, and like I'm trying to get more into psychology and like Carl Jung, and I've scratched the surface of that, but I'm realizing just how important the story and the myth of certain things, how that actually evokes the best out of humans, and like how it becomes really, really important for people to have something to attach emotion and meaning to. And it sounds so amazing because you're really creating that world for them, and you're really
Right.
building something. It sounds just so cool because you're actually building that community, like you're saying, in a way that people are. It's a real community. It's not something that is just for show. And when you're actually building that, it's like it's real culture in that. And man, that just sounds so amazing, dude. Like I think it's exactly what we need, regardless of where the gym goes. It's just what we need in the sport. Is it's so good to have mentors that really can embody this whole thing and hand down and pass down um, what they've learned in a way that's, it's not just about the next trick, and it's not just about this but
Right.
and that, but and I think it's super powerful that you're going to help people embody kind of a heroic movement to start, and a heroic mindset. um that's just super powerful. I think it's way more powerful, and it's something that even I would love to just study under and benefit from. I think just your mind on this, because I've started to, I was more like challenge focused, completion focused, through most of my training, and I'm starting to really understand the way I move and way I'm expressing myself is a lot. There's a lot more to say about what's happening there than whether or not a completion was occurred or how it was occurred. So I really appreciate that you know, that the way you move is really incredible. It's something to be studied for sure. I think it's really cool. So I'm a huge fan.
Well, that is appreciated, man. Yeah, it's it's definitely like I think everything totally depends on intention. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like I can see. I mean, I've obviously like known you for quite a while now.
I remember. Yeah, yeah. We go back.
Yeah, so I've seen you do some shit and been like, all right, Brandon, like, okay, like that's all right. I mean, I saw that thing you did at Hollywood High, like,
Oh yeah.
that running gate pre. I was just like, okay, bro, I know exactly where that is because I used to live over there, so like
Mm-hmm.
I know that space, like, all right, you know what I mean? um and like I said, like I think like obviously intention is really important, and I like to see like my personal situation as one of many, you know what I mean?
Mm,
Like it's really cool that heroes like Batman and like Black Panther exist respectively in their universes because they're really similar as like almost like reclusive characters that are solely focused on, you know, what's going on in their space, you know what
mm,
I mean? And all but also both of them have been like integral in like the saving of the world numerous times. So I feel like, you know, if I look at the community that way, it's one of the things that keeps me around like in the community, you know,
mm,
because
mm-hmm.
obviously I have really good friends, you know, like yourself included, in this space that like I love to death. But like, you know, I also have like quite a few problems here, you know what I mean, like personal problems, and that go with me everywhere I go, but like they're here as well. And that's why like I think the intention, and if I think about it as a full cohesive story, like the narrative is important because like, you know, you can be challenge focused, and obviously like there's growth to be made in completing challenges, but also in opening your mind to how you're moving and why you're moving and
Mm,
so on and so forth. But like I see something like you know, looking to complete challenges and like overcome massive obstacles as like more of like a Superman-esque kind of approach
mm.
to parkour. I think that's a lot of like Tim Champion is a good example of that. You know, um, he's like a Superman
Yeah.
kind of parkour athlete. I think because like the way that he approaches challenges is very similar to like what you're saying. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, he'll go at it that way. And I think that there is importance there because that's where the variety comes from. And you know, me personally, I pull from things like that. You know, I don't stick in one space. I'm not like a Foskey, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like
Uh,
Foskey is like 100% like this realm of athlete,
mm.
like that. It's like it's almost like you can just say his name and you already have a line in your head of, you already know what he, you know what I mean? Like I say his name and I have this line in my head. I just remember he did a Kong front to end the line. But it was like,
Across those like green boxes. That's the one I
yeah,
always think of too. He like Kongs up, does like a Webster, another one across, and just like it was just so fluid. Yeah, that one is the one that I find most iconic. I remember, I think that was a Art of Motion submission. Who knows, back in the day. Oh fuck! Don't tell me I fucking froze the video again. I'll freak out. This is so frustrating because Zoom. I'm gonna shit at Zoom headquarters. Oh, thank God you're
okay,
back.
hold on, there we
um,
go.
so anyhow, yeah, Foskey has that very unique style, and it's very purposed in that
Yeah,
domain.
and I think that's cool. I think that's great. I think that, you know, obviously Foskey has that kind of, this is the type of athlete, you know, I am kind of mentality or intention. And I think for the most part, like Tim has had that same kind of, mentality toward parkour. I mean, especially from when I met him, like when I first met him, um, and even from then up until the point where we actually did make swing theory.
Mm.
That's the kind of athlete that he was. He was very like mostly singular challenge focused, and I think people who push those extremes are important, obviously, because they have, I feel like that's another narrative that is important, because not everybody is going to be an athlete like, I would say, like I try to be, which I pull from things like that. So I have a lot of singular challenges that I have, like, pushed to tick off,
Mm.
and so on and so forth. And I've also had like a lot of connective movements that I've tried to, achieve, like line focused purposes. The thing that I do that I think is um, abnormal is I put those two things like together in the most complicated way possible. It's like you know.
It's like so hard to tell because you execute at a level that is flawless, you know? Like I don't think you allow yourself, I mean, I'm sure you have mess ups. I've seen you post, your attempts and things, but the final product, it is perfect. It is what you need it to be for you to be satisfied with it, which is very high standard, obviously, because there is no off balance. There is no, there's not a pinky out of place when you're executing the final line, the product that you're ready to submit, which is, it's really beautiful to see, and it makes things look so effortless that it doesn't look difficult. But when you know the distances, or you can understand, or if you go to the place, or even if you're just well educated in parkour or long enough, trained long enough, you just understand how difficult that is to do. And I appreciate it more than ever, like I'm saying, because I've not taken as much of a smoothing my edges approach. But I wanted to say that the challenges like the Hollywood High and stuff, that kind of challenge, when I'm able to access like my best self, it's always because there's a really strong why. It's not just because of the challenge. Like that challenge meant something to me, and that's why I was able. And there was a story about that whole trip that I was on. And I'm not gonna go. I don't need to go into it, but there's a why, there's an intention, and there's a lot of energy that I pulled into that moment. And that's why I was able to do something like that, is the way I see it. There is narrative and there is story even in those single challenges if you want to push them the furthest. I've never been able to push myself the furthest if it was just about that little bit challenge. It has to mean something to me. And so I think either way, like, and I know that you understand that. So, but just for anyone out there that is just confused, if there's like, it's not either or, it's like the narrative's important in both styles, very important. And each narrative of these styles is important, like you're saying. So, but yeah, I know that you understand the same thing. It's just like, you need to have, that's what most of these athletes, even if they're expressing it or not, I think anyone who's really performing at this high level, that's what they're doing. They're making it about like how they show up in the world, how they show up as a hero for themselves and for others and for the world at large. Right.
Exactly.
So, to that point, obviously we have these situations that are happening in the world right now, and there's a lot being brought to light. And you did a really amazing podcast with Kent on Method, talking about a lot of that stuff. But I think it really applies, because when you start to embody that heroic mindset, you're going to take on more of the world's problems. Like you said, like Batman and Black Panther, they end up taking on, they end up having to save the world. And that is a part of our story as individuals, once we kind of really dive into it and we see something like what we're seeing in the streets now. And, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add to Method Parkour. If you, obviously we're really excited to make some changes in this world, because I've had to dive in and like see, how I'm going to want to show up and change, and how I'm going to want to be more heroic in these moments. And it's not easy work, and you need that story again to help you get to the next level, because we all need to take it to the next level is what, I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, I was saying to Kent, none of this is like news to me or
Mm-hmm.
new for me.
Yeah.
I've spoken very, very loudly and clearly about these issues for a long, long time. And I mean, I would probably say, like, for the past 4 years, probably been the most important time for me to have been speaking about it, or the most apparent time I've been speaking about it, because like I've, you know, it, it's, it's saying it's hard to be black is like, you know, like saying it's hard to get out of quicksand. You know what I mean? It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it is. You're right. It's hard in so many ways because of, like, there's a lot that you feel like you can't do or say. A lot of people will tell you to be grateful for what you have and where you are, um, and that's almost like a cause to not speak out about, like, but shit's still, you know what I mean? Like, I'm happy that I am, like, not on a completely sinking ship right now, but this bitch is not sturdy and is not, like, the integrity is compromised. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, do I stay on this ship until it crashes? You know what I mean? Or do I say, hey, I wanna like repair this bitch. Like, I need help. Like, I can't do it by myself. It's too big, and there's a lot of people who are taking from it and, like, not helping keep it afloat because they have perfectly working ships that can navigate these waters. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's been a challenge, especially this past 4 years, because, maybe from the first time I can remember noticing it, let's say 16. You know what I mean? Like, the first time I, like, openly recognized that I'm treated differently. You know what I mean? From 16 to 23 is how long it took me to, like, say something, like, out loud, like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not okay with this. Most of it is just, you know, it's something. I'll give you the most basic example. Hearing, like, oh yeah, dude, you got those black hops, shit like that. Like, I never said anything about it. I would say stuff like, okay, but I worked really hard. You know what I mean? I've been doing this for a long time. I trained really hard to be able to jump like this. But, like, I mean, I've heard it everywhere. And it wasn't until literally, like, I'd probably say 23 years old that I was like, hey man, fuck that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let you say some shit. I don't know what makes you think you can't. You know what I mean? That's when it started. And that's when I started to really, like, go out beyond it, go into, like, the scary side of it, which is, like, not only speaking about it, like, if you and I had an interaction and I said something to you, but also, like, online. A lot of people say that what you see on the screen won't change shit. But realistically, if I'm being 100% honest, I know that the overwhelming majority of my audience is white. Like, I know that for a fact. The overwhelming majority of our community is white. So if I say something, and my good friends are people that even don't even actually know me personally, but they know who I am through this medium, if they hear me saying that, I have to believe in, like, the human heart that people are going to question themselves and question the world that they thought they were living in, just because somebody that they care about is saying, I am not okay with any of this. You know what I mean? Like, it might look like it because I learned how to live in it, but I'm not okay with it. I don't want it to stay here. I don't want to live like this my whole life if I get to live a full life. You know what I mean? Like, so this whole thing that's going on right now is kind of like it's kind of like Mario Kart when you hit the boost. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's really taking people by surprise. It's like fast tracking a lot of stuff, and it's not only fast tracking, like, the progress and the movement. It's also fast tracking people's awareness and education. You know what I mean? Because there's so much information that's just going around, and the difference today is the amount of white people that are sharing and saying, not just saying I'm listening, but looking and asking for resources, and so on and so forth. So like when it comes to this situation right now, um, nobody should take it as a surprise that I'm saying what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Because like people have heard me say it now for years, and like it's just now that the majority of people are beginning to take it seriously and ask the questions that they've needed to ask. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I mean when it comes to all of this, it's like I think that the background of what I have been doing is more important right now than it was when I was doing it. Just because of how many people are more aware and will go back and like, pay the attention to what I was trying to do and say with every, effort that I was making at the time, coming up to this point. And now it just makes it even more important, what I'm trying to do now. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that's one of the things that we need to capitalize on, because we have momentum. Like it's always been important, but it's really important right now to try to keep it going. Like, let's not drop the ball that we have it at least moving a little bit now. Right. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, we all have to, take responsibility. Again, I think it's that heroic thing that we just talked about when it comes down to how can we all, like, I don't know the experience of a black person, obviously, but I know that I'm not okay with the way things are going either. And how can I help? How can I help listen? These are all just important things because, yeah, you can't ignore this. We've tried to ignore it for way too long, and it's just. And if we continue, I just think it's so important for people not to try to miss the point too. It's like you have to think about what you're going to do. What are you wanting to do and willing to do to change? Let's not point the finger. Let's not try to justify. I see a lot of people just going, well, blah. It's like you're completely missing the point. It's not about that. There's a problem. Let's fix it. And to that, actually, I owe you an apology too, because on a recent episode with Phil Doyle, I don't know if you listen to the podcast. I don't know if you have time, because who does? But one of the, I've definitely, I need to make some efforts, and I know this because for me, I was definitely complacent, in some ways that I need to not be, and I'm trying to be better educated. I'm trying to ride the own momentum that I have going in my own life to continue this conversation with myself and with you and with everyone else. But like Phil and I sort of took a jab at you because we both recognize you're an incredible mover, but he's pointing to the fact that in the American parkour community, and he used you as an example, it's not really specifically at you, there's too much gym play and not enough outdoors. That was his complaint. And I forced him to make this thing. It's not really like he's like a dick about it. I was just wondering like what he sees as differences between UK and US communities. And, I should have really stood up for the fact that, number one, like, you face very different pressures than I do and than he would. And especially here in the United States, as far as I can tell, like, I don't know what the UK is like, but I know that it gets serious, probably more serious. I don't know, actually. I won't say on that, but I feel like it's at least as different here as it is anywhere in the world for where a black athlete is coming up. And parkour is this unique thing where, we are a little bit agitative to society because of what we're trying to do and the way we're repurposing the environment and doing things that are outside the norm. And that challenge becomes all the more consequential for someone who has the game rigged in a very more insidious way against them. So anyhow, I was just going to say basically that I apologize because, it's easy for either one of us to allow that finger to be pointed at like, okay, well, yeah, maybe we would like to see you more outside because we love your movement so much, but we're also not acknowledging the fact that you training outside and you know, jumping on some roofs and things, it might not feel the same to the way it feels the same to us. And that's one of the things that I've definitely been aware of this my, you know, whole training, and I'm like a freak regardless because my dad has no respect for trespassing signs, and I kind of grew up thinking that like it was okay to like just go on things anyways. But anyhow, I just wanted to say that, you know, we really, you have been a really integral and important voice in my world because of what you're saying, and because I can relate to you so much, knowing you as a parkour athlete and as a mover and somebody who understands a language that I also really value. So to that extent, yeah, just very much appreciate what you're doing and helping, because it can't be easy. You know, you're carrying a lot on your shoulders by doing that and speaking out. And luckily, like you've said, you've been prepared for years speaking your truth about this. So essentially, I don't know what else to say about that, but
yeah, it's, I appreciate that. Thank you for that. And yeah, I mean, I did actually, it's funny. It's funny because I don't even think when I was having a conversation with Max Henry, I don't actually think that I brought up the Phil instance. I was talking about, like, I mean, a lot of people give me so much shit. They like, number one, people assume I just don't train outside because for some
it's
reason
like you haven't
everybody
been
thinks.
watching, you haven't been paying attention if you think that. Like that was the other thing. Like I just let that slip underneath my radar, basically, is all I'm saying. I was just like, I thought about it and I felt bad for weeks because I was like, dude, that's such bullshit. Like Darryl kills it, crushes it outside and inside, and he's doing like whatever. I could go on and on, but like you do so much for
Yeah.
your community, and like it's important that you're indoors and training and showing off the facility. I could go on, but anyhow, sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. Those bits of energy are like they're meaningful to me. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, like I said, I just think people assume, it's almost like people think 100% of my life is on Instagram or like on YouTube, and it's like, dude, you have no idea like the hurdles that it takes to even get that, you know what I mean, even to get that stuff out. But like it's a large thing, like it's a huge thing. I feel like, and I could be wrong about this, but I do feel like I am the most attacked about this, especially in the professional community. Like, and again, that kind of makes me double back to the fact that the majority of our sport is white, you know what I mean? So like, you know, we got kids like Dan Dye out in Michigan, you know what I mean? And like he's a kid, you know, like he's an actual like kid. I don't even know if I don't think he's 18 yet. I think he's 17. Um, and like he knows because he experiences it. So like he would never come at somebody like me from that perspective because he totally understands and he wants the same level of like security, let's say, to know that he has a space to go to at any time, in order to like pursue his passion safely. And that's the thing that, it was like when I was talking to Max, I was talking about the community at large. You know what I mean? Like I hear a lot. One of the voices I hear a lot that makes me actually angry. It actually makes me angry is Chris Harmat. Because Chris Harmat will comment on my posts and be like get outside, go outside, and I'm like, bro, you have been here in the United States with me and seen me train. Like this is years and years and years ago, but it's like you've seen me train in and out, and like we've done this together. You fucking know better, number one, but also like you're just so oblivious for the woke person that you claim to be. You're so oblivious to like what my life is here in the United States, and obviously you're oblivious to what's happening if you think that I'm not afraid to go outside to go to the fucking store, because I am. You know what I mean? So like that was what I was kind of talking to Max about, because we were, Max and I are really good friends. We were just having a casual conversation, and he's the one that brought up Phil.
Oh, really?
And I was like, I was like, what did Phil say? He's like, oh yeah, on the recent height drop, like Phil said this, and then I went and watched it, and I was like, I was just like, dude, Phil just DM'd me after I dropped Bane and like praised the project. So I was like blown away that he said that. And like, I'm not like trying to push that issue, because that's not necessarily what is like important to me. But it was a situation like that. I was like, God damn, really? Like it happens at such a high level within the professional community. It's like I get obviously a million comments about it from people that don't understand, and don't take the time to try to. But like it's the pro community. That's the area in the space that actually bothers me, because I'm just like, you guys, everybody, especially at a really high level, has had an encounter with law enforcement. Like
100%.
there's no way you have, there's no way you haven't. And I have trained obviously like here and a lot in the UK and in Europe. And I mean been I've been profiled in Europe too. But like it's nothing like here. I mean, there's a total difference when you look at officers that don't have weapons on them. Like the fear kind of just drops off.
Okay, yeah, like
It's like we can go hand
you
in hand,
like
bro.
like at least I can run away. I know parkour. Like worst comes to worst, there's no projectiles coming at me.
And I don't live there. That's the other thing. Like I don't live there, so like if they have almost no way of finding out who I am, unless they catch me, or catch somebody I'm with. But like out here it's totally different, man. Like I mean, like the simplest thing, and I'm sure this has happened to you before, but like have cops ever asked you for your ID? Dude, I always tell them I don't have my ID on me, because the thing that they do is they have my ID, then they have a profile on me, then if somebody sees me in the area, then they're going to call it into the radio, like, and every officer within that space is going to know. And people don't think that's the truth, but my dad was Oakland PD for many years. I know for a fact that's exactly what they want. They want to have me, like, they want to have my description, and they want to have a name and an address to plug into it, so that if some shit goes down, let's say I happen to be in an area and a robbery happens on the same day, not even at the same time that I was seen in the area, they have my address, they have my phone number, they have my license plate, because all that stuff's registered to me. They can just show up at my door and say a robbery happened at this time, you were seen in this place, we have reason to suspect that you may have been a part of it, you know what I mean? And then they can fucking arrest me at my doorstep, you know what I mean? So like, and that's like, that's the nice version. I could just be seen in an area, which happened already, like very recently, and the cops will just roll right up on me about something that they heard, you know what I mean, about something that somebody called in, but that person's not present as a witness, which means that there's no evidence of any sort unless they have video footage, which they don't. So technically I'm free to go. But that's not my experience. Obviously, that's not what ends up happening. They threaten to arrest me, like, and if I don't comply, and so on and so forth. So it's just like a whole different. And the instance I'm telling you about, I wasn't even doing parkour that day. I was filming people doing parkour. Like I wasn't even doing parkour myself, but I was the only black person there. You know what I mean? And the cops rolled up on me and spoke straight to me, and like let the other two people I was with walk away, which I requested that they do so to let me handle the situation. And like, they had no problem with them walking away, but had every problem with me in general. So like it's a situation, where that was a situation where I'm not even actually doing anything. You know what I mean? I'm just in an area.
Yeah. And that's all it takes for
them.
And that's the problem. Yeah. I mean, that's what's so fucked. It's just,
why would I So first of all, I mean, I'm passionate about this sport because I deal with that all the time. I just deal with that.
Mm.
I don't go anywhere by myself because I don't want anybody in my family to get a phone call and you know what I mean. I just
Yikes.
I
Yeah.
don't want that to happen. So I don't go anywhere like that by myself to train, especially. But like, why would I, if I'm a pro athlete, which I am, and like I don't only like I don't work at Starbucks. You know what I
Mm-mm.
mean? Like I this is my actual profession. So like people pay me to do this. Why would I not take advantage of a situation that I have my own space to practice in, and like I design the space for the evolution and growth of athletics, like of like the you know, like your athletic output as a free runner.
Mm.
Like, why would I not use that space when I know I can go in there and nobody can tell me I have to leave? Nobody, I mean, the cops could, obviously they know where I work because they got my fucking ID. So they could roll up if something goes wrong, you know, and I happen to be in an area. But for the most part, like, nobody can tell me anything when I'm in there. You know what I mean? It's like, nobody can say you have to leave. Nobody can say, like, you know, you can't be here, or nobody can arrest me, you know, for doing what I'm doing or for just being there, because I can fucking be there. You know what I mean? That's my space. Um, it's kind of like that. It's like, why wouldn't I take full advantage of that when there is a true danger for me out there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I still go out there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just not what people like see
Yeah.
most of the time. But and even right now, I mean, obviously my passion is more important than my fucking pain to me, because like, I mean, not that anybody has paid a lot of attention, but COVID hit, we closed the gym. I've taken my stand with my community not to be in the space, working in the space until we can safely get people back into the space. So I've just been doing my thing out here, being a leader to my community and showing people that they can still, you know, get their work in. Um, I'm out there, and nothing has changed. Nothing's different. Now I just have another reason for the police to have a problem with me. I'm outside, you know, not
With
wearing
a
a
mask.
mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, nobody's around. That's why I'm not wearing it. Like, but you
We're
know,
around. Well, I mean, I know that, but oh my God, dude, I can't
yeah,
even
you just
imagine.
rolled up. I got my mask in my backpack, you know, like, but yeah. So it's kind of just like that. That's how that situation feels for me. You know what I mean? And that's like the comments and the jabs, and it's not new. And like, you know, you were not the first. So like, I would be upset if you took more responsibility than you know
Well, I
you.
mean, it's not even like it's intended as a jab. Like we both, but the problem is that we're not thinking about it, and you shouldn't have to explain yourself, and this shouldn't be what we're talking about. You know, it's just not important. Like you're saying, I don't. It's not something for anyone to really draw their attention to. It's yeah. There's no need for you to explain like what you want to do and where you want to do it, and we all need to just. But I just recognize that you're taking unnecessary heat. It's just, you know, whatever. It's just we need to become more conscious, and that's like part of that's just like it's just a slight clue as to like the lack of awareness that, you know, is, you know, even amongst parkour community members, we see ourselves as progressive, and we see ourselves as young and up and up on and hip to a lot of things, I think, because, you know, I hear
Right.
it all the time, and we think we're a very diverse community sometimes, and, you know, that can be a real thin veil of like what's really happening, and I don't think that it's there's even a whole lot of evidence to suggest that a lot of that's true. And so I think just because we are a progressive community and we see ourselves as inclusive and we want to, you know, bring everyone in, and we see ourselves as not having, you know, the problems of older generations and things, it's not necessarily true, and it's up to us to actually make it true, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, yeah, yeah, I just don't think that sometimes we give ourselves a little bit too much pats on the back, and there's still a long way to go, is all I'm saying. Inside the
Yeah.
parkour community, even not
Yeah.
just as a culture, but in our day-to-day interactions, what we do, what we see, and how we behave just within our own realm.
Right, right. Yeah, I think often, I mean, I've said this to a lot of people. Like, if you think you have it figured out, or if you think you're quote unquote like on the right path, like you are very far from it.
Mm.
Just because like you should be questioning yourself all the time. I like, and that's the same thing. You know, there I am not trying to reverse this argument at all, but like there are a lot of people of color, just people who have been oppressed, that will come out at this time and be like everybody else was wrong, we were right. And it's like, yes, but also like if you want to be truly like progressive, you know, and we should be fair to the situation, because like we've been suffering for a long fucking time. But like if you want to be truly progressive, then you also have to understand like that you need to look at yourself, and see like where have you been, you know, performing the same travesties that have been performed upon you, upon other people, or you know, where have you been negligent, you know what I mean? So like i I don't like to believe that I have my eyes on every problem that I need to have my eyes on, which is why I keep my eyes open and I keep my ears open, you know, like, you know, I've been really, not only sympathetic but active in trying to support like the female community, you know what I mean, like within the sport for a certain, but also outside of the sport, you know, in every other way and shape and form that I can, um, because I think that's a that's an area that I would say I haven't I haven't like looked at as harshly as I should, maybe. I have little sisters.
Mm.
I love my little sisters, man. They're like little teenagers right now, like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
13, 12, going on 13. Like, so I, I don't want, I mean, dude, I will fight with somebody. Like, I had an argument maybe 2 or 3 years ago with a German guy who was out here,
Mm.
um after NAPC, and I had an argument. It was like me, him, Charlie Havel, I think Ed Scott was there, and Joe Hendo.
Mm-hmm.
We are having this conversation, and I was talking about like I think something that we should like work toward doing, something that should have happened at NAPC, is like there should be a like separate sleeping area for women at the jams, not like forcing them into it, but at least the option, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because like if we're being real, there's fucking 60 dudes and 4 women. That's the truth, almost all the time. And that was an example that I was like making. And dude, this guy said the most dog shit thing I have ever heard. He's like, I mean, I have just as much chance as they do. And I was like, you're 6'2" and like 210 pounds. There's no way anybody is gonna violate you the way that they could a woman, especially because you're a part of the majority and they're a part of the minority at that point in time. And I've heard how dudes talk about women like at jams and shit, dude. Like, not even to throw anybody under the bus, but also kind of fuck that. Like,
Mm.
that's not okay. And I legitimately got livid with the dude. I was like, I'm not having this fucking argument with you, because if we keep going because of how you're talking, because of what you're saying, like it could get physical. So like, don't even,
Yikes,
bro,
yeah.
like that's not okay. And I stood my ground with that situation. I was like, I will be the first person to not only shut you down but fuck you up if you take it to that extreme with a lady. Like,
Mm.
dude, I was like, how can you just be so disrespectful to their struggle like that? You know what I mean? I could never ever imagine my sisters being in that type of a position, you know what I mean? And then just not being heard because some asshole has their own opinion, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it's like that, you know what I mean? So when I express like people thinking about, you know, how they see the world, and like I have a really open mind. That I think that is a flaw that exists heavily like in the parkour community, is like believing that we're the open-minded progressive sports community, but not recognizing where we're lacking and where we have been lacking for a long time. You know what I mean? And it's not just, it is not just like, you know, the misunderstanding of like the struggles that people of color have to go through, especially within this sport, the type of sport that it is, the massive representation, like the facial representation of the sport, not representing somebody like me. You know what I mean? Like point out another person in the sport who has done what I have done that looks like me, that's from where I'm from. Like, you know what I mean? That's a
Mm.
really hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But like we've done the same thing to the women in our community, and like I've been a part of that myself, and I've recognized that, and I've said that out loud, and I will remain apologetic for it, but I'm not going to keep it at that. Like I've done things to try to like fix that. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna keep doing that shit, because I, no matter no matter what one thing I do, or you know, one thing I help make happen or whatever, like the work isn't done until it is. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So to me, it's just like we everybody needs to, if you really want to be progressive, if you really want the change and the better future that we're all looking for, then you have to question what you're doing, what you're saying, and not so much like, am I doing the right thing necessarily, but maybe am I doing enough? Like
Mm.
is what I believe, a lot of people believe that the shit that they're seeing right now is wrong in our sports community. But is belief enough? You know what I mean? You can believe something, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
You can believe something, and I may not know it. And if it pertains to my health and safety, what does your belief do?
Mm.
If I don't know you believe that, and if other people don't know you believe that, and if you're not active about your belief, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I hate seeing kids in cages. Okay, did you sign any petitions? Did you vote for like against it? Like, are you speaking out about it? Are you bringing awareness to it? Or are you just sitting there and you see it on your phone and you're like, man, fuck that, that's disgusting, and then you just swipe to the next
Yeah.
story? You know what I mean? It's stuff like that. So I think like, yeah, people need to question that. That's a healthy thing to do, especially if you want to be active about, you know, making the change in this world. I mean, you know, like you have to be thoughtful of that. And if you're comfortable not being thoughtful of that, I don't even know what to say. It's like that's a luxury.
Own it, I guess, too. You know, I don't know. Yeah, it is a luxury, and but it's not. It's an escape. It's an ostrich head in the sand kind of moment. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's the work isn't done. Like, yeah, you can go hide, and you know, you may not feel like you're hiding, but you are. You're choosing willful ignorance, and you're choosing to neglect, and you're choosing to not be heroic in a certain way. If it, you know, from where I sit, you know, like you said, I believe the work is not done until it is, essentially. And if you believe everything's all good, um, which that'd be ridiculous. I feel like if you really ask
Yeah.
yourself that, like, oh yeah, everything's all good, we're chilling, we can just cruise control to the end now. It's like, if you believe that, okay, well, just think about that for a little bit longer, maybe. But if you don't believe it's all good, then make some changes. What are you gonna do? You know, what can you do? And the work's never done, like you said. It's just that's okay. You know, that's it. Don't begrudge that. You know, that's how you can show up, and that's how you can make your life be more impactful, meaningful, is if you actually take on that heroic persona a little bit more. You know, it'll be hard, I'm sure, but it'll be good, and you'll feel better. I think you'll probably get more out of life if you do that. You know, Batman, Black Panther, whatever. When the next villain rolls around, they're not just like, ah, fuck it, I already did my part. You
Yeah.
know, like that's what's heroic about them, is that they don't stop, and they keep showing up. And you know, and they wouldn't have ever gotten there if they were just like, you know, you don't see, there's no comics written about some guy swiping on Instagram being like, fuck that shit. Anyways, eating cereal, who knows? It's just, that's not a heroic act to just be like, I don't like that. It's just not, it just doesn't do much, privately, especially. And yeah, you know, there's a lot of people that are trying to escape hatch the world. You know, I see in certain sectors, they're like in a position where they're like, maybe I can just go off the grid. They're just trying to completely turn their face away from everything. And, you know, you can understand the sentiment. There's a lot of problems in the world. You want to look after you and yours, and you want to make sure that you're taking care of the people you love in the world. But if you're trying to turn your back completely to what's happening in humanity, at least own it, I guess. I don't know, you know. That can be a choice, you know, go living in the woods, whatever. I don't know, but it's, I don't know. I have to think about that longer to really, you know, make a thorough or thoughtful argument about that. But it's just something to be aware of, like you said. I think awareness is the key. You know, we all have to like keep questioning and keep growing our awareness.
Yeah. I think like the thing that I hear the most that I'm just like, I don't know how you can even think that's an option. But when people hit you with the, man, why don't you just, you know, like all that shit, why don't you just leave? Or why don't you just do what they say? Or why don't you just, you know what I mean? It's like, dude, don't hit me with that. Like, there are a multitude of reasons. Obviously, number one, I mean, I know the immigration system here very well, like very, very well, because I've been through it. You know what I mean?
You immigrated here?
No.
But you've been...
my ex-wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like, you know what I mean? Like I know that situation.
Yeah.
That shit's hard. It's even harder to get out. You know what I mean? Like it is hard unless you're going to school somewhere. Like it's really hard to get out. You know what I mean? So like you can't just leave the problem. You know what I mean? Even let's say I leave. What kind of asshole do I have to be to leave a struggle that I know I'm not the only person facing? You know what I mean? Like, what kind of asshole do I have to be? You know what I mean? That's the way I see it. And it's like, I don't hate on anybody that does that.
Yeah.
But I would hate myself if I did it. That's the thing. Like, if somebody gets out, like, shit, man, like, I'm glad you're out of it. Because realistically, from my perspective, I'm glad that you're safer somewhere else. But me personally, I couldn't do that because I know that I would still see the issue and still be like feverishly upset about the issue. So how could I be so hurt by something that I fled? You know what I mean? Unless my work was making a way for everybody to flee it, you know what I mean? But like, even then, will the problem still exist? Yes. What needs to change is the problem needs to be abolished. It needs to be completely and utterly destroyed. And there needs to be something put in place to heal the wounds of, you know, that problem inflicted. So like the why don't you just do this? Most of the time, almost all of the time, comes from somebody that doesn't experience the issue. So it's like a I don't want to hear that. And that is like that's the thing that like needs to change. Like that's the big thing, you know, because people will say that, and it's like, dude, why don't you try harder to understand me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
How about that?
Oh man, yeah, exactly. Because it's just like, where is your role? Like, you're just like, why don't you just? It's completely unshouldering, like completely rejecting any responsibility for anything, and it's just like, yeah, but you just do that, or like, you know, it's like, dude, this. Oh man, that's so it's not funny, but it's just like ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, well, yeah, it's such a good retort. It's like, oh, why don't you do this? It's like,
Yeah.
don't you see how you're talking? You're talking in a way that's just like, I'm not gonna do anything. That's all you. We're not in this together. You know, we're not. I don't see you as somebody that matters to me, or like, you know, that's part of the community or the family or just the species I'm in. Like, God, give me
Yeah.
like, I'll get on the same page. Like, you know, this is for everyone. This isn't just, you know, this is for you too. Like, you'll be having a better life by helping bring up the people that need help, because if they can't do that to them, then they can't do fucked up shit to you either. And like, or
Hmm.
it's not sensical thinking. It's cutting off your hand if it like hurts, you know. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
If you burn your hand, you don't just go, you know what, I don't like the way this thing is bubbling up with pus, I don't like the way that my skin's falling off, I'm just gonna chop my hand off and get rid of it. Or it's like, I don't even know, like, it's comparable to like this a lot. I don't know, it's comparable to something that's just so irrational to me to speak that way.
Yeah. When you think about how much sense it fucking doesn't make, you're just like, how did we get here?
But yeah, and that's what we're having to unwind and heal. I think you used a really powerful term. It's like, we need healing, man. Like, it's, if you look at the whole story of the human race as kind of like the story of the individual, if they are even comparable, I'm not sure that they are, but you know, there comes a time in everyone's life when they have to kind of like look inwardly and realize that they've done some fucked up shit to themselves, and they need to like change and stop talking to themselves a certain way, and they need to start listening to the parts of themselves that they've been ignoring or that they've tried to like fill with money and other like superficial material things, whatever it is that they thought would heal them, but that isn't working. And actually become an integrated human being, you know, or whatever the term is, but just like a one cohesive thing that's much more powerful than, you know, some fragmented, segmented thing.
Exactly. I think that's a good analogy. I think that's like a really good way to like, you know, compare the like struggles. Like there's like the what we're experiencing right now. I mean, especially like what is the current like focus right now is a part of the human struggle. I think like, you know, it's not just it's yeah it's a part of the human struggle. Like it's a part of the human struggle in ways that people don't even understand. Like the way that this pertains to climate change is funny actually. um so like I mean realistically and I encourage people to like pay attention to that and like kind of study that. But yeah, I mean like what you said I think is, you know, there's a lot in there that is relative, you know what I mean? Like yes, there is the individual human struggle, which is a microcosm of the planetary human struggle
Mm-hmm.
that we experience. And it's the truth, like you said, if there's something wrong with your hand and you just chop it off, it's like, well, you didn't necessarily fix a problem. Like now you got a whole new problem now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you think about it like that, like if you think about, you know, instead of seeing, let's say, just make it simple, the black community, instead of seeing the black community as, oh, I need to help them fix their problem, like, yes, you're right, but also, like, that's a part of your body. If you think about it, if you really just delve deep, there's not a single part of at least this country where somebody doesn't benefit in some way from the black community. Like there's it's just there's way too many inner working pieces
Oh yeah.
for people to feel that way. You know what I mean? So it's kind of just like, you know, I don't know, your pinky toe. Let's just say that. That's not even a fucking good example, but if you're you know, if you have an infection in your pinky toe, it can spread through your entire body and kill you. Like it can. And the issue isn't that you need to get rid of it. The issue isn't that you need to like suppress it. The issue is you need to heal it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And by healing that part of you, you make your entire body healthier as a whole. So like your analogy, You know what I mean? That's like that's an extreme physical version of what you were saying. But yeah, like if there's something wrong with you, how you're treating yourself, and it's hurting you somewhere, you need to heal that in order to heal your whole body. And what we're dealing with right now, as this one specific issue, being like, you know, the oppression and subjugation of the Black community, like we need to heal that. You know what I mean? For our whole society, not just like for the one part of it. It's the whole society will benefit and become healthier because of that. Because you really do have to imagine what this world could be like if we weren't held back. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
right now, everything we have that's beautiful and amazing, and all the offerings that we give, that's coming from oppression. Like, and
Mm.
that's not to say that it hasn't made some beautiful things, obviously, but who's to say we couldn't do that without it? You know what I mean? Like, I just look at it like this. Look at all of the amazing shit that I would say athletes who aren't necessarily weighed down by the issues that I experience. Look at the amazing shit that like Ed Scott has done,
Oh my God,
and
yeah.
Nate Weston and Tim and yourself, and you know what I mean? Like, look at that amazing shit. Did that come from oppression or did that come from passion? You know,
Mm.
like I don't feel like, you know what I mean? Like, look what can happen when you can focus on something that brings you joy.
Mm.
Like what beauty can be made when you can focus on something that brings you joy. if if we can focus on like fucking just having a good life instead of trying to live, you know, in this society, like how much more great things can we offer to the world? Like that's how I see it, and that's the idea. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
there's mad strength in overcoming like issues. Obviously there's mad strength in overcoming insecurities, but healing insecurities, let's say, and turning them into confidence. Like what does that person do? That person is better than the person with the insecurities that you
Mm.
were before.
Mm.
That's why you appreciate who you become, because like the strength that you now have overcoming those insecurities, overcoming the injuries, overcoming the pain, the strength that you have right now is what is important, because you've proven to yourself that you can get through it, but you've also given yourself a stronger person to work with. If you could do all that shit when you were like drowning, imagine what you can do with lungs full of air. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like that's the way that I see it. So like I think what your analogy was fucking perfect actually.
Well, that was amazing, man. I think that you really actually spelled it out in a way that is really, really important. And thank you so much. Like, yeah, yeah, man. I think like what you do is you really embody this heroic mindset, and like you said, like we should like I can't wait. You know, I mean, we don't want to wait. Why would we want to wait for those gifts to come through? And yeah, like Black culture has been extremely influential on my life, on everyone's life, like you said. And you're full of shit if you think that it isn't, or yeah, you know, I don't know, but it's so powerful, man. I think you said it all. So I don't know if that's a good place for you to wrap up. I know you have more interviews to do,
Yeah.
and I know you have like other things, so I don't want to take up all your time. But um, is 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 there anything else that you want to mention or drop or point towards when it comes to just what can we expect, or where we can do and help and follow you at?
I'm, yeah, I mean, like of course, something I've been saying a lot recently is, I mean, if you look at my story, if anybody's been following my like specific like Instagram story for the past like couple weeks,
Yeah.
it might look like it's all over the place, and I actually explained this. Um, I said to people like, if you're seeing these horrible things that I'm like sharing, you know what I mean? And then you're seeing something that makes me happy, you know what I mean? Um, and then you're seeing like another horrible thing, and so on and so forth. Like it's just like it looks like a roller coaster. Like I don't know what to feel. I was like, that's what it feels like
Mm.
to live in this skin, in this society every day. You don't know when to be happy, or like, you know, you try to be happy and then something else comes along and takes away your happiness. You know what I mean? Like, because you see travesty after travesty after travesty, and you can't just turn it off, because even if you ignore it when you're somebody like me, it's still your life. It's, you know, you can shut it off, but it doesn't change what's happening out there. You know what I mean? Like, and you know it still exists in existence. So it's almost like you're just trying to cling to, you know, whatever feeling of joy that you can. Um, and if you can't take that as a viewer, then you can't imagine what it's like to experience that as somebody who lives it. So I told people, I was like, on your way to that unfollow button, make sure that you think about that. So realistically, I would just say, like, you know, there is obviously a way to fight this fight, and obviously find your joy. And I don't want anybody to feel like, fuck, I can't enjoy myself because of all this horrible shit that's happening. I think that that's the fuel that you need to be able to fight that fight. You
Mm.
cannot fight all the time and not have any sort of replenishment. So like I would say, you know, that's why you see my posts with the writing, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Cuz I do a lot of what I do physically as a release, obviously, but it's also it's not just that. Like parkour for me has not been, for a long time actually, hasn't just been something that I just do to escape, or like, you know, it's not just fun to me. It is like, I can't explain why I want to do it all the time. I really can't. But like when I do it, I feel like I'm carrying something with me. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like I'm not just moving freely. I feel like I'm carrying a responsibility. I feel like I'm also carrying a target on my back. And the movement is kind of like for me, it's expressive in its power and its strength and its refinement beyond all of those things weighing me down. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And when I share that, obviously people see the movement and they're like, it's fucking sick. You know what I mean? Um, but I write what I write with it. And for me, it's that's the real release. That's the
Mm.
real release when I
Mm.
get to express in that way. Bane was the process of creating Bane was a serious challenge. Like putting out Bane, that was the release for me.
Mm.
So like supporting things like that, um, those things are helpful. And looking into like deeper into the narrative and just like seeing the movement and appreciating the movement and then looking into what is really behind it, I think that should cause more appreciation for the movement, because there's true meaning there, like you said. um, and it's deeper than just the challenges themselves. So I think people looking into that, supporting that, you know what I mean, like putting more time and effort into that, similarly to how you would listen to like a J. Cole or Kendrick Lamar album. Like you're not just hearing it for how it makes you feel, but you're also listening to what they have to say, and like it makes you think. You know what I mean? And it should make you think, and it should make you like question how you live and all that stuff. Like that's how I put things forward, and that's how I think more people than just myself put their efforts forward. So I would recommend to people that they take more time than to just see it at the face value that they see it at, and like delve deep into what the actual messaging is, because to me that's what really makes it important to their lives. It's why we'll go back and listen to albums over and over again. You
Mm.
know what I mean?
Mm.
Because I don't even, it's just, why do you listen to Pimp a Butterfly like 3 times a week, Darryl? Because I don't fucking know. It's just so important to me. Like it just makes me feel some way, and like every time I hear it, it just reminds me of all of that importance. You know what I mean? And I think it helps me keep moving forward. So I think if people can see at least see my offerings that way, that would be like a lot of help, not only to like my community, but also to those people understanding the struggles of my community, if that makes sense.
100%. Yeah. No, man, I really appreciate what you're doing. It's so wonderful. You are turning a boys sport into a man sport, and you're really, taking the consciousness to a higher level, I feel like, and it's really important. Otherwise, what are we doing, right? So I appreciate everything that you do, man. I love what you do, and I will be doing my part as much as I can here to listen and read those and spread the word. You're killing it, man. That's all I can say. Killing it.
Thank you.
Just keep doing what you're doing. And of course, if you ever want to talk, I love having you on. This has been one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, well, you got my contact info.
I got your info. Up, man. Yeah. Hopefully we can come together in person too. And we also deal with the Zoom technical difficulties. Are you going to be coming through Colorado ever this year or anytime soon, or?
It all depends on like how things are, you know what I mean, in terms of like public safety and such. So if things are good and it's like safer to travel, you know what I mean, like then of course, like at this moment in time, especially with what I'm doing, like with Squadron, so much focus is going into like the media more than anything. So like going places is that's something that I would like to do some more of. So yeah, it's all just based on like safety, really. Like 100%. when it is more publicly safe, I would say, then most definitely, like I'll be out that way.
All right, yeah. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know. NAPC is off this year, so I'm wondering. Like, I just want to. I haven't been to actually the last two, so I should just bite my tongue here. But I really want to like just see what we can do. If there's some kind of event we can hold that just keeps the momentum going, and who knows? Maybe we can talk about it off air. So, yeah. Then thanks so much for your time. Like I said, I just really appreciate everyone that gives you the attention that you deserve, because you deserve a lot, I think, right now. And
thank you very much.
Alrighty, gang. Darryl Stingley, the man, the myth, the heroic legend in the making, living legend.
Westside.
All right, that was it. Episode 89 in the books. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks, Darryl, again, for being a part of the program. And once again, I have to encourage you guys to visit the description. You know what to do. Much love. See you in the next episode.